Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Are you ready to reach for the stars? Tune in to The Lost Wanderer, the #1 monthly podcast on good pods in astronomy. Join our host, Jeff, as he takes you on an interstellar adventure to explore the mysteries of space and the wonders of science. From rocket launches and distant galaxies to the latest discoveries in astronomy, each episode is a thrilling ride through the cosmos. Don't just gaze at the stars, come explore the universe with us. Follow The Lost Wanderer wherever you get your podcasts, and let's discover the stars together.
My dad was really, really special, and I loved my dad a lot.
I'm proud of him, and that even though he isn't here with us, but he died as a true hero.
I miss everything about him.
In the moment that the officers and I had to come see the children, my biggest reaction was, I don't have 7 arms. I have 7 children who just lost their father, and I don't have 7 arms to wrap around them.
I'm Frank Silla, chairman of the Stephen Silla Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Our foundation is committed to delivering mortgage-free homes for Gold Star families and fallen first responder families.
To not have to worry financially is a huge peace of mind. The thought of, what in the world will I possibly do to pay the bills? How will I possibly let the children have a life that feels normal? I don't want them to have to quit their piano lessons or their basketball. I don't want them to feel that we have to move into a little apartment and struggle financially in addition to the emotional weight.
There are over 1,000 families that need our help. Tunnel to Towers is honoring those heroes that risked their lives by providing them with mortgage-free homes.
Those who serve us and then lay down their lives protecting our freedoms and our safety, the least we can do is $11 a month to give them that peace of always knowing there's a home, there's that sanctuary when life feels like it's been tipped upside down, because it has when you lose a parent in the line of duty, to know you can go home, you can be safe, there's no risk of losing your home. That's a peace of mind that I can't believe you can get for $11 a month.
I'd like to ask you to contribute $11 a month to support their efforts.
Please donate $11 a month by calling 1-844-BRAVEST or visit tunneltotowers.org.
Independence. With that declaration, America was born. Inspired by a belief in the God-given rights of every human being. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Our government was established to secure these rights and for the good that comes from exercising them well. This is why the founders of our great nation chose independence. As do we. Hillsdale College accepts no government funding. Because independence makes possible the good to which we aspire. Hillsdale College, pursuing truth and defending liberty since 1844.
Ready to learn some medieval combat, kiddo?
You bet, Dad.
Let's do this.
You know, spending quality time with your kids is important, but finding a fun and safe way to do it can really be a challenge. That's where halberds come in. Halberds are the perfect way to bond with your kid while teaching them about history and physical fitness. Plus, they're a blast to play with. So next time you're looking for some family fun activity, grab a halberd and get ready to make some memories.
Come on, Dad. Round 2.
Halberds, bringing families together one medieval battle at a time. This commercial brought to you by the KLRNradio.com Ad Council.
I'm Jordan Klinger, an attorney at McIntyre Law. The decision to hire an attorney after you've been injured is important. The decision on who to hire is even more important. At McIntyre Law, we will settle a case if the offer to our client is fair. Partial justice is no justice at all. At McIntyre Law, we are committed to obtaining full justice for our clients. Contact McIntyre Law at 405-917-5200 or visit us at mcintyrelaw.com.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Not to be a backseat driver, but can you say for sure you got the best monthly payment possible on your auto loan? Could it be that you might have gotten a better deal by shopping the loan at a few places and have a lower car payment? Next time, before you go car shopping, visit Communication Federal Credit Union first. Our auto loan experts will find you a perfect loan and get you the lowest monthly payment we can. Communication Federal, your auto loan experts. Restrictions apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
I take a breath, I'm not gonna lose. This is what I came here to do.
Keep on doing what you do, Rick. You're my favorite host. Favorite.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
It's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. You're listening to America Off the Rails with your host, Rick Robinson. And good Monday evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sort of. They were hour 1.5, so I guess I'm hour 2.5, and then we'll have hour 3.5 when we switch over to the SHR crew here in a little bit. But I'm Rick Robinson. This is the America Off the Rails show. We usually try to do this thing every Monday night, but lately it's kind of been a toss-up between Mondays and Wednesdays because we've got a programming hole to fill every other Wednesday. I know, rules, and I just broke one, so I gotta push a button. Giggity, 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 goo. Who doesn't like to fill holes, though? All right, so anyway, dude, I don't even know where to start today. I guess we're just going to start with a bit of a rant, because this is still making the news. And I'm sorry, I understand that the courts don't necessarily agree with me, but I'm going to say this again. As far as I'm concerned, if illegal migrants don't have access to all of our constitutional rights, which they do not, they should have access to none of our constitutional rights. Because there are so many places that are, and it's federally a law. If you're here illegally, you cannot touch, own, or even, you can't even basically look at a firearm. So I'm sorry, if they don't have Second Amendment rights, none of the other amendments should really apply to them either. And I understand that I'm a minority in that topic, especially right now, but I'm hoping that starts changing soon, because we're setting a very dangerous precedent right now with all of this screaming and yelling that Illegal migrants should still have due process. You're right. They have access to limited due process. And I'm tired of having to say this. This man and most of these people have had all the due process they're entitled to because they came into the country illegally. A judge that was basically charged with determining whether they got to stay or not said they had to leave, meaning they were legally ordered deported. And so they were made to leave. That is all the due process an illegal alien is entitled to in this country. And if that is not the case, then be careful the Pandora's box you are about to open. Because if you're going to fully extend to them the 14th Amendment and the 5th Amendment and all the other amendments that come with it, then you're going to have to afford them the right to bear arms. And do you really want people that are coming here illegally to have a legal right to bear arms? It's bad enough how easily it is to obtain guns illegally in this country, which is one of the reasons why I keep telling everybody that outlawing them won't change anything, because that just means only the people willing to break the law are going to have the guns. And for everybody who was, just 15 years ago during the Obama administration, well, would it really be that bad if we outlawed all the guns because the cops would still have them? Imagine if we had gone full bore into the defund the police thing, which was what they wanted us to do. They wanted to take your gun rights away, my gun rights away, and then completely defund the police and get rid of them because they're a racist organization that was originally founded to capture the slaves, which is bullshit. Then you fast forward to today, and now we're getting all weepy-eyed over people that broke the law to get in here. I'm sorry, but as far as I'm concerned, that's like trying to have pity on somebody who broke into your house and started robbing you blind. Well, you just don't understand their circumstances that made them do that. Maybe I don't, and I don't really care. They broke the law to get in here. I have no sympathy for them. Nobody has sympathy for me when I get pulled over for speeding. Nobody has sympathy for me when I have a client that hasn't paid me yet and I can't afford to get my car tagged for a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden the cop's like, hey, your tag's out, right? I'm going to give you a fix-it ticket. You better get it fixed. Gee, thanks, Bubby. Nobody cares about any of that when it happens to me and you, and it happens to all of us. We have to face the consequences for our actions. Why shouldn't they? Why do they get a pass? Because they've had a hard life. Nobody wants to talk about my life. I don't even want to talk about my life. My life. The first question that I ask everybody that wants to talk about white privilege is, where's my card? Because I've had no white privilege. I've had to fight, claw, kick, and scream for everything that I have ever managed to build. Watched it fall apart more than once, and am still kicking, screaming, and clawing to try to make it work again, over and over and over again, because it's the only choice that I have. So all of these people that keep wanting to do and say all of the, well, it doesn't, they just want a better life. You know what? So do I. So what should I have done under the Biden administration? Should I have given up my citizenship, snuck across the border, and come back and gotten 5-star rooms and culturally acceptable meals for free? Nobody else gets that. And you may wonder where I'm going with this, but I'm about to explain it, because this happened. So Michelle Obama, who started a podcast, was just doing another podcast and was complaining about how expensive it was to be first lady. Now, keep in mind, they were millionaires the day they set foot in the White House. You explain to me how a community organizer was already a millionaire the day they set foot in the White House, and now they're worth $70-80 million easy. They were worth 1.7 when they took office. Now they're worth almost $80 million at last count. And she was complaining again. Now, this isn't the first time she said this. And I'm sorry, this pisses me off, because nobody else in the country gets their food handed to them unless they're just absolutely dirt poor. Nobody. And half the time that doesn't even work. Because most of the time, if you need food stamps, you don't get enough to do what you actually need to do with them. It's just enough to make sure that you don't starve. Most of the time. Unless you happen to be one of those people that knows how to game the system. Which is why a lot of us get mad about this stuff. And why I get frustrated when I hear a former first lady, well, you have no idea how expensive it was to live in the White House, because you may not be paying rent and you don't have to pay for the staff, but you have to pay for everything else. Every bit of food you eat, you have to pay for. No, really? You're a fucking millionaire bitching about the price of food? Seriously? Seriously? Seriously. And then everything else. And she's like talking about Bright Star, which I guess is the First Lady's plane. And if I wanted to take my kids on the First Lady's plane, I had to pay for them to be able to go with me. Oh no. You mean the American people don't want to pay for all that stuff? Gee, it's too bad the rest of our government doesn't work that way. We should be able to send our government itemized bills for all the things that we find out that they're paying for that we don't want them to pay for. That's what we should be able to do. And I know everybody's tuning in because the title of the program is talking about Donald Trump and his unforced errors. And there were several, especially over this weekend. I will say this, what he said wasn't wrong. How he said it was terrible. Because I'm sorry. With us being in a trade war, and we've been in a trade war for a very long time, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, we need to start getting the point across to the American people that if we want to survive the trade war and not start learning to speak Chinese, then we're going to have to suffer a little bit. Little Jimmy might get maybe 5 trucks for Christmas instead of 32. Little Jenny might get $5 for Christmas instead of 30. But at least they won't be cheaply made Chinese crap dolls that break in 5 minutes. That's the other thing. I have grandchildren, and trust me, as somebody that has as many grandchildren as I have, I love the fact that there are cheap toys. I really do, because then I don't have to be the socks and coloring books grandpa, which I'm dangerously close to becoming if they keep popping out kids, because we're now on number 14, I believe. I'm not doing the math in my head. It's not Sunday night. There's no math on Mondays. But yeah, counting blended and kids that call me dad, I have 14. And I do try to make sure that I get them birthday presents and Christmas presents, even the ones that live in other states when I can. And having access to cheap goods is helpful with that. But being raked over the coals by the Chinese is not. So I know exactly what Donald Trump was trying to say. And I've seen so many conservative pundits that are like, well, what he's talking about is dangerously close to socialism because he wants to limit their choices of what they can purchase. No, that's not what he's saying. He's saying maybe we get you higher quality goods for a little bit more money, which limits the amount that you can purchase because you can't buy $30 for $100 anymore or whatever the price is. But again, this is one of the things that I've been trying to talk about for a long time. Consumerism is going to be the death of America. And the worst part about the consumerism movement in America is it was started under Nixon, who was a Republican. Again, I hold no allegiance to any party. I don't care what the letter is behind your name. I only care that you're trying to do what's best for we, the American people. I don't care what the letter is behind your name. I don't care what you say. I only care what you do. And the problem that I've had with Nixon for the longest time isn't even about Watergate. Watergate wasn't the issue. The issue with Nixon and the reason they used Watergate to get rid of him was because of all the other things that he was starting to try to do. And they started salivating over those things because they knew what they could do with them, like decoupling us from the gold standard so we could start printing money like crazy. Nixon wanted us off the gold standard because he wanted the welfare state, but he also wanted to be able to fund all the wars that all the Republicans wanted. And there wasn't enough money to do that. So he decoupled us from the gold standard. And next thing you know, we had the gold standard, and all of a sudden we had these money printing machines that have been around since about that time that nobody knew about until just a few months ago when Elon Musk was like, are you aware that there's like 7 different computers within our government that can just start randomly putting money into the ether through ones and zeros? I don't know about you, but I suspected it. I didn't know it. I suspected it though. But yeah, so Donald Trump is sitting here trying to tell everybody that, hey, if we're going to go toe to toe with China, this means that some of your things may get more expensive unless China caves. And what nobody's telling you is China's not going to publicly cave, but they're already starting to try to make back channel deals because their economy is in even worse shape than ours is. So much like the stock market, because remember, just 2 weeks ago, oh my God, this is the worst stock market since 1932. And then by Friday, it had had the biggest rally that it's had in over a decade. but nobody's really talking about that. And of course, there was a dip today. Of course, there was, because everybody's like, well, we can't let him have that much good news for that long. Because I've been trying to tell you for the longest time, it's the billionaires that are playing with the market right now to try to force Donald Trump out as quickly as possible. That's what's happening. It's all the people that have the money to play that are pulling out of certain things and putting money back into other things just so they can create dips and drabs. So it looks bad in the media cycle because that causes people to start souring. Some of the things that he said over the weekend may also start people to start souring. The problem is a lot of it was taken out of context. I'm not saying they were forced errors, but I'm saying with the way the media took them as sound bites, it makes them sound even worse than they actually were. Because all he's been trying to say since he started saying this is something that we used to understand. Once we have an identified enemy, we are aware that sometimes we may have to suffer a little bit to do something to take care of that enemy. China is not our friend. China has never been our friend. China has been using the Belt and Road philosophy to try to put every single country under their thumb, and it was nearly working. This is one of the things that Donald Trump is trying to stop. This is the reason why the world is trying to stop him, because the only thing they care about is that there's a one world government. They don't really care who initiates it because they know that everything is going to collapse, and eventually they think they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to swoop in, clean up the mess, and establish the one world government that all of these people have had a wet dream for since the 1940s. Do you really think that everything we started trying to do was for altruism after World War II? Really? Because I have a couple of bridges I want to talk to you about after the show. If so, just email me at Rick at KLR Radio and we'll start discussing terms. Because what happened was, is everybody that was in charge everywhere was like, well, so what we could start doing is we could take the third world countries and start building them up into the point where they're second world status. And then once we get everybody but us to second world status, we can start moving everybody from second world status into first world status. And then we can take this newly created thing through NATO and the UN and we can make it the world charter and it can be the one world government. But it didn't work. It didn't work as intended. So it went the other way. And then they started realizing that the problem is we made it a lot easier for it to work the other way because there was somebody else who supposedly had a really bright idea after World War II as well. Because they were like, well, we thought World War I was going to be the war to end all wars. And then just a few short years later, we had another one. So what if we start intertwining everybody's economies so nobody can bomb anybody back to the Stone Age anymore? Which means, guess what? You pull on enough strings in the right places and you start a cascade failure, and then everything falls apart. So when they couldn't get everybody leveled up, they started working on tearing everybody down, using some of the same tactics from Spooky Dude and now Spawn of Spooky Dude that we have been using for years to supposedly bring democracy to the rest of the world. And then once the Cold War was over, we had all of these mechanisms that nobody knew what to do with anymore. And it was all spun up and it was all funded. And nobody wanted the money to go away. So we started using it to preach supposed democracy in a level that you and I are never going to understand, to start telling people you're either going to do all of the things that we are telling you to do, or you're not going to get any of this money. These are the things that have been being uncovered now for the last 100+ days. And the media doesn't want you to know about it. The media doesn't want to talk about it because then you're going to understand exactly how broken everything is. And then you're going to understand why you have the president of the United States sitting on national television explaining to you that, yes, we are in a war and there will have to be sacrifices if we're going to win this war. But it is a war like none of us have ever fought before. It is a war of ones and zeros because, ladies and gentlemen, your money is imaginary now. That's the part nobody wants to talk about. There is so little tangible money that if they destabilize just one government, the entire world starts collapsing. We saw it happening with Venezuela when they started making a run on the banks because there's not enough printed money. All money is ones and zeros now. It's almost all digital. This is why COVID was such a big scare. This is why they started printing money like crazy so that you still had money to buy things, so that you weren't running to the banks and trying to pull all the money out, even though it created runaway rampant inflation like crazy. Because it was worth it in the long run because nothing collapsed. It came close, but nothing collapsed. Except if we had kept doing what we've been doing for the last 4 years by putting somebody like Kamilama Hamasnik in charge, or God forbid, Joe Biden actually got a second term if he hadn't flamed out on that debate stage, then we would have been bankrupt. And Scott Bessent and Donald Trump have told you as much. They have been probably the most transparent about everything that they're trying to do as any administration that I've ever seen in my lifetime. They're the ones that point blank told you we could have just really come in and done a couple things like passed the no tax on tips and the no tax on Social Security and the no tax on overtime, and then just rode the coattails once we got our tax stuff through and been fine and probably won another 2 or 3 elections out of it if the country survived that long. Wait, what? I just saw that. So wait, they're creating earthquakes in Yellowstone for science? Oh, these people are insane. These people are insane. They're nuts. See, this is why I'm glad I do a long format show, because we're already 30 minutes in and I haven't even really talked about anything yet. All right, so we got to talk about this real quick, and then we're gonna change topics a little bit because I'll get into more detail with Trump tomorrow on the afternoon show. So if you guys can't catch that live, it'll be up on all the podcatchers later. I finally got caught up on all the backlog, so it shouldn't be a big deal for the shows to start showing up in a decent time frame anymore. So this is from Sarah Arnold from Town Hall. Apparently, CNN decided they were going to interview a gang member. So instead of me reading about it, let's just play the clip. Hang on.
What's your message to Donald Trump?
Mi respeto, ¿verdad?
So we've just entered an area of the city that is still very dangerous. After weeks of trying, our contact here on the ground has managed to secure a meeting with a member of the cartel who's involved apparently in the production of drugs. ¿Cómo estás? This man is talking to us on the condition we hide his identity and location. Can I pull up a chair? He says he produces fentanyl for the Sinaloa cartel. How safe or dangerous is this area to be in?
En estos momentos todas las áreas son peligrosas.
I mean, according to the Trump administration, you are a terrorist. I mean, the cartels have been labeled a foreign terrorist organization. What do you make of that?
Está fea la situación, ¿verdad? Está fea la situación, pero pues de todos modos tenemos que comer.
What's your message to Donald Trump if he's watching this?
Mi respeto, él tiene que según él buscar lo mejor para los suyos. Pero el detalle que ya están los consumidores, ¿no? Si no hubiera consumidores, pues uno le parara.
There is a lot of violence playing out on these streets here at the moment every day, right? I mean, people are dying on a daily basis. Children are afraid to go to school. Do you have any sense of remorse over your role and your involvement in this group?
Claro que sí, creo que sí. Pues está triste la cosa, pero pues está triste la cosa, pero.
All right, so I know most of you don't speak Spanish. I do. So if you're watching on a phone, you probably couldn't read most of what he was saying. So basically what he was saying was, while he respects everything that the president was trying to do because he looks like he appears to be looking out for his people, in his estimation, if there weren't so many American consumers of their product, they would be out of business. So, I mean, the problem with that is he's not necessarily wrong. So I respect him for being that open about it, even though he had a mask on and it was kind of hard to understand what he was saying. But I also have a huge problem with all of this because I do believe that the cartels have become terrorists. And I think that half the reason why you're seeing some of these wonky judge rulings that you're seeing when it comes to this kind of stuff is because I believe that some of these judges are allegedly in the cartel's pockets because it behooves them to have judges on their payroll. And it's not like, I mean, with all the conspiracy theories that have turned out to be true, is it really that much of a stretch? Is it really? All right, so we're up against a break. We're going to have to take one real quick. When we come back, though, we've got even more to talk about. So the climate folks are a little sad right now because apparently everything they believe is falling apart. There's been some developments in Antarctica that we're going to talk about when we come back. Remember when Al Gore told us by 2015 there would be no more ice caps? Yeah, we'll get into more of that on the other side of the break. If you guys would be so kind, please make sure to share the feed, like the feed, subscribe to the feed, wherever you happen to find it, wherever you happen to find us at tonight. Please and thank you. And we'll be right back.
I'm not afraid to take a stand, take a stand. Everybody, come take my hand, come take my hand. We'll walk this road together through the storm, whatever weather, cold or warm.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, pop up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
I know karate, I know jiu-jitsu and drive like a gangster when I'm coming to see you, see you, see you, see you.
I'm Jordan Klinger, an attorney at McIntyre Law. The decision to hire an attorney after you've been injured is important. The decision on who to hire is even more important. At McIntyre Law, we will settle a case if the offer to our client is fair. Partial justice is no justice at all. At McIntyre Law, we are committed to obtaining full justice for our clients. Contact McIntyre Law at 405-917-5200 or visit us at mcintyrelaw.com.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
Not to be a backseat driver, but can you say for sure you got the best monthly payment possible on your auto loan? Could it be that you might have gotten a better deal by shopping the loan at a few places and have a lower car payment? Next time, before you go car shopping, visit Communication Federal Credit Union first. Our auto loan experts will find you a perfect loan and get you the lowest monthly payment we can. Communication Federal, your auto loan experts. Restrictions apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
And welcome back into the America Off the Rails show. Just a quick reminder, in case you missed it, Corin Nimick launched a podcast on KLRM Radio yesterday called Corin's Reading Room. You can find it as of right now on Spreaker. It's also available on our X feed, our YouTube channel, our Rumble channel, and his YouTube channel and Rumble channel. We don't really care where you watch it from, just as long as you watch it. And apparently, so far, about 3,500 of you have. So thank you for making it a very successful launch for us here. All right, so bit of an audible. I've decided we're going to talk about something else first instead, because I saw this article while I was on break, and then I found the clip that's tied to it. So a young man got his first paycheck from McDonald's, and apparently he had questions. So first things first, let's watch the clip, and then we'll discuss. We've all been there. What's this thing called FICA, and why did it take half my check? Like I said, we've all been there.
All right, so we have my baby opening up his first check. He says it's going to be $200. 200 something. 200 and something. So here we go.
What we looking at here? I'm trying to be careful with it.
That's not the shirt you wore to work.
No, I was wrong about that.
Oh.
They gave me another one, so now I got 3 of these.
Mm-hmm.
Man, goddamn, let me get shirt.
So you weren't allowed to wear the t-shirt?
No, I wasn't allowed to do that.
Oh.
Let me see what this is. That's $283.
Oh.
After tax, what's that?
That is after tax. Hey, you got some money.
Shoot. That's hard. All right, bet. Let's take it to the bank then.
All right, so we have my baby opening up his first check. He says it's going to be $200.
200 something, man.
200 and something.
All right, so this was a high schooler who got his first paycheck. And then I guess there was another young woman who got her first paycheck and got her tax deductions explained to her. This is covered more by Becky Noble over at Red State. We all remember our first jobs. Those were the days. You were pretty sure you were going to be swimming in the dough. I remember when I got my first job, I swore I was going to be Scrooge McDuck with a money bin. Man, I'm not even playing. My first attempt at experiencing the joys of capitalism, as my dad was fond of saying, was at a movie theater in my junior year of high school. I think I must have seen Porky's about 90 times. I can also remember seeing 2 different totals on that first paycheck, and my dad explained to me what was meant by net and gross. A recent video on X of a high school girl getting her first lesson in taxation will bring back memories for all of us, and it's also the one thing that young people should be taught when they land their first job. The video starts with a girl who we can see and we assume is at least 16. She has her first paycheck spread out before her on a table. She begins to point at different parts of the pay stub and begins to ask some very good questions that, quite frankly, more Americans should be asking. Her mom can be heard in the background doing her best to answer her daughter's questions. Her first question: I don't have Medicare. Why is Medicare taken out of my work hours? Mom says, pretty matter-of-factly, it's called taxes, boo-boo. Our young employee says, yeah, I understand that, but I don't have Medicare. You pay taxes for the things you buy. I buy cheese. I buy $6 plus tax, plus sales tax. I don't have Medicare. I shouldn't have a tax on Medicare because I didn't buy that. So this isn't going well so far. The discussion continues. Youngster says incredulously, $7. That's more than a 12th. That's more than a 12th of my workness. Mom can be heard giggling in the background. I'm laughing because I've had these same conversations with most of my children. Surely her one thought is, welcome to real life, kiddo. Her next question: what is a Michigan income? Why do you get to tax me for making money? Trust me, kid, you are definitely not the first to ask that question. She says to mom while she is laughing, you're laughing, but I don't understand. Mom says, that's what a tax is. She says, that's income tax. That's income that's coming to me. Mom continues the lesson. That means income that goes to you gets taxed. Our young worker then asks, so what was the point of giving it to me if you're going to take it out? Again, kids, you are the latest in a long line to ponder that one. So mom is still laughing, but is doing her best. She says, because the government didn't give it to you, the company gave it to you. Youngster suddenly gets it and says, and the government says, that is mine, and makes a grabbing motion. Mom says, yes, but that's not fair, and it's not theirs, according to the youngster. Now you're catching on, though, kid. It's at this point that she spots what is apparently the money box and says $15 in taxes. $15 is a lot for a high schooler. $15 was taken from me just because. Yeah, kid, just because. Mom then goes on to explain the concept of Social Security. Our first-time worker, whose facial expressions throughout say it all, is not buying that scam because, like it or not, it is a scam. It's a government-sanctioned Ponzi scheme. Mom then explains filing income taxes. Youngster keeps waiting for the part where she gets her money back. Good luck, kid. We're all waiting on that part. Mom lets her know that this will happen every time she gets paid, and when she files income taxes, their Uncle Sam will be waiting for his cut. The look on her face is the look we all have. Good for Mom, who explains to her daughter what just happens when you start earning a paycheck. It is a lesson that more parents should teach their kids when they enter the workforce. If they did, more people might connect the dots that the government's money is really their money and they take it without asking for it. And who knows? I'm pretty sure that we may have just seen the birth of a new conservative. All right. I just realized that video was on the screen the entire time, and I apologize for that. But, all right, as we get into the waning moments of the program, in case you missed the memo, there's a new study out of Antarctica. The ice is growing to the chagrin of a lot of the climatards, which we told everybody was happening. It's been apparent now for years when you're talking about all the icebreakers that have to get up there for the people that work in those areas and the Arctic and the Antarctic, and the ice is growing again. But that would be impossible, right? Because according to them, we're killing the planet. We're killing it, but we're not, because the planet's a lot more resilient than anybody wants to admit. And the scariest thing is, if you take everything they say at face value, we're still not destroying the planet. We might be ending our time on the planet in, say, 50, 60,000 years, assuming we can survive that long on our own. But we wouldn't destroy the planet. Hell, Mars is a planet. It's still there. At one point, it looks to have been habitable, much like our planet is now. Something happened to it. The planet didn't die, though. It's still there. There's water underneath the surface. There's likely microbes of some kind in that water if there's ever a point where it doesn't freeze. So there's still an ecosystem of some kind. Just because we may not understand the planet in its form, if we do manage to destroy it, and the hubris thinking that we even can, short of thermonuclear war, is kind of astounding, because even then, the planet won't die. We may not be on it. Cockroaches will be. The Earth's going to be fine whether we're here or not. The thing that we are discovering is everything that we have been taught is a lie. We were told that fossil fuels were scarce because that made them precious and that made them expensive for the people that were getting them out of the ground. And that's where the term fossil fuels came from. There's no evidence that these things came from fossils. As a matter of fact, most of the places that we find oil don't even have any fossil records. Somebody found a short key. Sorry, Amish. I just saw that you thought it paused. It probably looked like it did for a minute, so you may have hit something thinking that it froze because I had the same video up. But yeah, it didn't actually freeze. I was still talking the whole time. All right, so let's see what other trouble we can get into real quick. Dude, I'm not used to doing these hour shows anymore. So this is a big one. I just saw this. When did this come out? I guess it was when I was doing research because I missed it somehow. This is from Jennifer Oliver O'Connell over at Red State. Trump has officially signed an executive order outlawing gain of function research. Can Congress codify this one like now? So on Monday, President Donald Trump, joined by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr., Director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, NIH, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, and Commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration, Dr. Marty Makary, they joined him to sign an executive order banning gain-of-function research.
So this is from the Rapid Response 47 team. Breaking, POTUS just signed an executive order protecting Americans from dangerous gain-of-function research. The order ends any present and all future federal funding of dangerous gain-of-function research in countries of concern like China and Iran and in other foreign powers. Does it end them here, though? That's my question. So I'm going to read the whole thing here. Breaking, POTUS just signed an executive order protecting Americans from dangerous gain-of-function research. Ends, blah, blah, blah. And them in countries like China and Iran and foreign nations deemed to have insufficient research oversight. Empowers American research agencies to identify and end federal funding of other biological research that could pose a threat to American public health, public safety, or national security. Prohibits federal funding from contributing to foreign research likely to cause another pandemic. These measures will drastically reduce the potential for lab-related incidents involving gain-of-function research, like that conducted on bat coronaviruses by China, by the Eco Health Alliance, and the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Because we all know, and I don't have it loaded, damn it, China is asshole. Sorry, my board crashed the other day, and I still need to reload a few things. So this will or should protect Americans from lab accidents and other biosecurity incidents, such as those that likely caused COVID-19 and the 1977 Russian flu. So the executive order reads in part, Section 1, purpose, dangerous gain-of-function research on biological agents and pathogens has the potential to significantly endanger the lives of American citizens if left unrestricted. Its effects can include widespread mortality and an impaired public health system, disrupted American livelihoods, and diminished economic and national security. The Biden administration allowed dangerous gain-of-function research within the United States with insufficient levels of oversight. It also actively approved through the National Institutes of Health, federal life sciences research funding in China and other countries where there is limited United States oversight or reasonable expectation of biosafety enforcement. The recklessness, if unaddressed, may lead to the proliferation of research on pathogens and potential pathogens in settings without adequate safeguards, even after COVID-19 revealed the risk of such practices. According to Section 2, it is the policy of the United States to ensure that United States federally funded research benefits American citizens without jeopardizing our nation's security, strength, or prosperity. My administration will balance the prevention of catastrophic consequences with maintaining readiness against biological threats and driving global leadership in biotechnology, biological countermeasures, biosecurity, and health research. So, after living through the COVID-19 madness, I wholly support this, and Congress really needs to make this permanent really flipping quickly. Because holy crap. All right, so looks like we've got a little bit of news that I missed today as well. In all fairness, though, today was like a half day off for me because I was working, sort of. I wasn't doing research. I was doing all the other stuff. But I guess Israel and U.S. strike deep into Yemen. So let's look into this real quick. Houthi terrorists got a lucky shot at Israel on Sunday with a missile strike near Ben Gurion Airport, wounding 4. And the IDF wasted no time in striking back at prime Houthi-held real estate in Yemen. Details are still a bit thin, but the videos are, shall we say, explosive. Reports vary between 30 IAF jets and up to 50 in a joint operation with the U.S., but either way, it was big. Sorting out the discrepancy during a breaking story isn't easy, and not even the official statements are much help. A just-released statement from the Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu seems to confirm a joint action, but without enough detail to be certain, I can't elaborate on all of that, Netanyahu said. The U.S., in coordination with us, is also operating against them. It's not one and done. We acted before, he said. We will act in the future, too. So, let me see if I can put this video up on the screen real quick.
فاشل يا صهيوني فاشل فاشل والله لن نتوقف عن إسناد غزة مهما فعلتم ومهما أجرمتم ومهما طلبتم فقط كل ما تفعلونه استهداف للمنشآت المدنية مقدرات الشعب.
ضربهم محطة جديدة
أكيد هذه الضربة في مصنع الأسمنت.
ده مصنع ولا محطة؟
Oh, durka. And couldn't have happened to a nicer group of towelheads. I'm just saying. I know that's not a nice thing to say, but I don't really care. All right, so we're down to about 10 minutes. Don't forget, after this, and actually we'll probably be shutting down a minute early because I forgot to put it on the Chiron. So I'm going to have to go over and set up a fresh feed for Sean. So we'll probably be shutting off about a minute early just so I can try to get there in time. But let's see what other trouble we can get into here real quick. Oh, this is definitely one that I wanted to talk about. So the DOJ is going to war because Washington State has declared war on confession and also apparently the First Amendment. This is again from our friends at Red State. There are few things more sacred to people of faith than their ability to worship and confess per their beliefs. But in Washington State, that right is now under direct assault. A new law, Senate Bill 5375, signed by Democrat Governor Bob Ferguson, crosses a constitutional line that should alarm every American. Of course, this is regardless of political persuasion, but we know better. The law requires clergy to report suspected child abuse or neglect, even when that knowledge comes from a religious confession. The language is narrow and targeted. It makes clear that, unlike in most other states, there is no exemption for what is known as the seal of confessional, a practice especially central to the Catholic faith, where a priest is bound by oath to reveal what is said in confession, even under legal threat. The bill's author makes it clear that she has no regard for religious conviction, calling it little more than conscience. It took Senator Noel Frame, Democrat Seattle, 3 years to get the bill to the governor's desk, making sure disclosures during confidential conversations between a penitent and religious leader were not exempt was critical, she said. You never put somebody's conscience above the protection of a child. See, I have an issue with this because these are the same people that say that teachers should be able to not discuss with parents the fact that little Timmy's little Jane in class now and prefers different pronouns. So I call hypocrisy. So, however, the Department of Justice, has in fact taken notice. On Monday, the Justice Department announced it is opening a formal investigation into Washington's new law, citing serious concerns that it violates the free exercise clause of the First Amendment. According to the DOJ press release, the Civil Rights Division under Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon is going after the state. The law appears to single out clergy as not entitled to assert applicable privilege as compared to other reporting professionals, Dillon said in a statement. We take this matter very seriously and look forward to Washington State's cooperation with our investigation. And I happen to agree. The government cannot compel people to violate their deeply held religious beliefs. That's not just my opinion. That's the actual basis for the First Amendment. I don't know if that's as much him starting early or just nobody's clocks seem to sync up anymore. I don't know what's going on with that because I said this to Amish the other day. I'm like, every time I turn around, my phone clock is different. My computer clock is different. The clock on my board is different. Now I'm looking at it, and for the first time in forever, they all seem to be pretty well synced up, which is really weird because that's never happened in like months, but I don't know. Anyway, sorry, I was responding to the chat for those of you that aren't in there. But if you're not in there, you probably should be. Just saying. All right, there was one other story that I wanted to get to real quick, and for some reason I managed to get rid of that site somehow, and I don't remember doing it, so hang on. Oh, yeah, that's because this one is actually about my state. So, as you guys may know, there's been some recent arguing in front of the Supreme Court as to whether or not a Catholic charter school is going to be allowed. For some reason, my attorney general is about the only Republican in the state that seems to think this is a bad idea. Getner Drummond. You may know that he's related to the Pioneer Woman's family. So the Catholic charter school case in Oklahoma that has been taken up by the Supreme Court is by definition a religious liberty case because there is no wall of separation between church and state, according to Oklahoma Superintendent of Public Instruction Ryan Walters. And he's not wrong. As much as Ryan Walters, for some reason, is not popular in my state, this wall of separation thing doesn't exist. This wall of separation is based on letters written by Jefferson, not the actual Constitution. And it drives me nuts. The original interpretation and intent of the Freedom of Exercise Clause was to make sure that the United States of America didn't do what England did and establish a Church of England and put its leader at it as its figurehead. That was it. That was it. Everything else that's come from this is all just, it's just BS. Trying not to cuss because I'm talking about church right now. So the court heard arguments last week in a bid led by the Catholic Archdiocese of Oklahoma City and the Diocese of Tulsa to establish St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Virtual School. It would be the U.S.'s first taxpayer-funded religious charter school. Walters told Newsmax that proponents of the school are excited by the justices President Trump has put on the court since they are originalists. They look back at the First Amendment, they look back at the Constitution and say, listen, you have the right to the free exercise of your religious beliefs, the Free Exercise Clause, so we are punishing a school. Our Attorney General, our state Supreme Court here are punishing a school because they're Catholic. They meet every criteria. Their application was flawless. It was tremendous, Walters said. They want to bring education to our kids, and our court and our Attorney General come out and say no because you're Christian. The answer is no. And as Kavanaugh pointed out, Justice Brett Kavanaugh, in case you're wondering, and Justice Samuel Alito, this sounds like very anti-religious motivations from our Attorney General in the Oklahoma State Supreme Court. And make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what it is, because if Oklahoma was to found an alphabet-friendly, and you know what I mean by that, charter school, even though whether you want to realize it or not, secular humanism, which is the basis of most of the alphabet theology, is an actual religion, there would be no talk of separation of church and state if you came out as an ally to all the alphabet people and that you were founding a school where they could feel included and accepted. Nobody would say anything about that. Nobody would claim that because whether you realize it or not, even as atheists, they all worship something, whether they want to admit they do or not. Secular humanism is a religion. Transgenderism is the faith of that religion because you are accepting by faith that a boy can be a girl and a girl can be a boy. Faith is the absence of evidence that is seen, but a belief that it is still true. That is exactly what transgenderism is, which is now a part of the alphabet mafia. And I guarantee you that if in Oklahoma they were starting one of those schools, nobody would have batted an eye. But here we are having to argue in front of the Supreme Court for the very things our founding fathers wanted to make sure that we always had. Welcome to the new America. Hopefully we can start fixing that soon. My name's Rick Robinson. This has been my show, The America Off the Rails Show, and I'll be back tomorrow afternoon. We do Tuesdays through Fridays. One of these days I'll remember how to talk. The Rick Robinson Show, noon to 3, and I'll be hanging out tomorrow night on the Manorama panel. Make sure that even if you can't make it for my show, you come hang out for the Cocktail Lounge, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. All right, I got to go because I got to make room for Sean. I don't even think I'm going to have time to change feeds. I think I'm just going to throw him up. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. Enjoy the rest of your Monday.
I'm not afraid to take a stand, take a stand. Everybody, come take my hand, come take my hand. We'll walk this road together through the storm, whatever weather, cold or warm. Just letting you know that you're not alone, not afraid. I'm not afraid to take a stand, take a stand. Everybody, come take my hand.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows.
Get your fat ass on that Air Force One. Get your fat ass over there and bring that man home to his family now. I got one thing
That
to
should
say
do
to
it,
the
right?
president
That should
of the
fix it.
United
Ladies and
States.
gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHR Media Network. I appreciate you being here so much. It is the 5th of May, 2025. Got a whole bunch of things to talk about this evening. Well, how'd you like the new intro? I worked on that this week. I hope you like it. I enjoy it. The voiceover is going to change. It's going to be somebody you probably know. And if you don't know them, then shame on you. You should. Hold on. Let me fix. There we go. That's better. You don't need to see that much of my face. That's better. Hope you're doing well. Hope your week's starting off well, or as well as a Monday could be. You know, I have this little. She was talking about Trump. I have this little routine that I go through as I BZ's in the chat room. Hey BZ. As I get ready for the show, I do all my notes. I push out and do all my little publicity stuff where I throw it out to social media, yada yada yada. About an hour and a half before the show, I make my dinner, sit and have my dinner, and I usually watch something on YouTube. I have a couple different YouTube channels I like. One of them being the Fat Electrician. For those who don't know, if you never checked him out, amazing military historian. And he focuses on a lot of the history that isn't told or hasn't been told. There was a whole lot of me on people's screens. I'm sorry about that. I apologize. I was messing with it prior because it went wacky and all of a sudden it was zoomed way into my face. And honestly, it might as well be a baseball glove up here talking. But the Fat Electrician, he does a lot of military history, but military stories you didn't hear and about specific individuals or a crew or a mission, whatever. And he's hysterical. I think he's funny. I really enjoy it. But sometimes at the end of his stories and shows, it's a sad ending. And I know that. I know it happens a lot because he's dealing with war. And unfortunately, a lot of these people perish during whatever combat that they're in or related to. And that was the deal tonight. I was all pumped for my show. I was ready. I was all excited and like upbeat and happy. Sat with my dinner, turned on the Fat Electrician, and then by the end, I was just like, oh, that really sucks. What serial number? This is camera. I bet he doesn't know. You're right. I do not know. If you really wanted me to like think about it, I could. I think it's the Nexio N950P or something like that. Hey, Ricky's in the chat room. Lost Wanderer is also in the chat room. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being here. I appreciate you guys. So yeah, so then I was all pumped up. I was all excited, and I here I am watching the Fat Electrician. He didn't. The story bummed me out at the end. He's a great presenter. He's on the Unsubscribed podcast. If you've never checked that out, another person who's on there. All of them are hosts in their own right, and all of them have platforms in their own right, and they're all pretty famous. Another guy that's on there is Angry Cops. He's on YouTube and all social media as Angry Cops. Angry Cops is a Buffalo, New York Special Victims Unit detective. Hey, Big E's in the chat room. Thank you, sir. And he exposed last week, and I followed the story since it started. He exposed the Buffalo school system, essentially doing what Fairfax, Virginia was doing and hiding a lot of crimes and abuse against children. And I'm assuming he did this he was not working. It was an unofficial capacity. I'm guessing that he had the blessings of the right people at his work, because now it's blown up and it's exploding. And if you haven't followed it, I'm not going to play their stuff. I want you to go watch their stuff. I'm not going to Bigfoot it, but it is incredible. And hats off to his name's actually Richard High, and he was a staff sergeant. He was a drill sergeant, great guy. Hats off to him for exposing this because, you know, it's so weird that the places we send our school and expect them to be safe are very much working against our kids, and it's just frightening. So hats off to them. But let's get into the stories. First one I get today, I have a whole list. I'm trying to be better. I used to do it on the screen over here, then I had a tablet over here, and I'm just trying to work around. As you can see, I got a new little name tag and just trying to make some little upgrades, hear things out, see how things are. I have seen Nick's folder. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I've seen Nick's folder, Fat Electrician. I'm telling you, if you guys go back to the Unsubscribed podcast, I believe it was last Tuesday, and start there, follow them on social media and just work forward. It's mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. And I know Angry Cops put out today that Nick's the Fat Electrician, BZ. Angry Cops put out today that there's more coming and that it's finally getting the attention it deserves. And he was on local news. The Erie DA's involved, and they're getting to the point where they're getting ready to interview people. So it's quite interesting. But moving on to other stories. Trump signs an executive order. This seems like a no-brainer. I'm glad he did it. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. No, if you've ever watched The Fat Electrician, you'll know he must do hours upon hours of research. He's so well researched, it's not even funny. Trump signed the executive order for the gain of function ban. I'm glad he did it. What the hell took you so long? And essentially, it says that we will no longer federally fund gain of function. Why is this important? If you were living under a rock, I'll explain it to you. COVID-19, Wuhan 19, whatever you want to call it, started in a Chinese lab. That lab was being funded by a medical institution over here that was getting money by the NIH and essentially was funneling it over to them to do gain of function research. What is gain of function research? When you take a virus and you stop manipulating it to be a worse virus. It's how we sometimes come up with biological weapons that we aren't supposed to use, but we have biological weapons labs. That's interesting. Either way, and that's essentially how COVID-19 came into existence. We funded our own lockdowns. We funded the deaths of millions of America through, and I know Fauci and the others deny that was it, Kung Flu. I know they all deny it. Of course they all deny it, because why would you admit to it? If I'll tell you right now, if they released that as a weapon, it would have been a war crime. It's horrific what it did and what it caused and the effects. Now, I am of a belief, and I've said this a million times, I am of a belief that I believe it was released intentionally by the communist people of China. Why? Not the leadership, not the people themselves, the leadership. Why? Because if you go back, just before COVID-19 started, Trump was already starting to really work in China and the bad business deal that we had with them, the tariffs, essentially, and our trade deficit that we're dealing. It's why the tariffs today are such a big deal. Within a couple of weeks, that's when all of a sudden COVID-19 started popping up. Sean, he killed so many of his own people. Communist leaders have done that for years. For years. Look at Stalin. Stalin killed more people than the Nazis did. I'm not saying that makes the Nazis any better people. Don't get me wrong. But Stalin killed, and communism has killed more people than the Nazis did. It is the bane of existence in this world. And I don't care who has we just haven't done the right communism. No, Stalin will tell you he did the right communism because he maintained control. He killed off the people he wanted to kill off, and it scared everybody else. It was exactly perfect communism if you look at it. Of course, you have people who are mad on the left. Oh, well, we need that research. We need that research. If you're a private medical company and you want to do that research with your own money, go for it. If you cause a disaster like this, you're all going to end up on trial. And that's why they take the federal funding. They want the federal funding for this because it helps them. Oh, well, we were getting paid by the government to do this research. It's not our fault it got out. It was the government wanted us to do this research. No. You have all this money. If it's that important, figure it out. If it's not that important, you won't spend money on. Private businesses only spend money on things that are important to them that will make a profit for them. That's how business works. That's how reality works. That's how you work. When you go to your job, you don't just do it because it's fun. I mean, some people are lucky enough to do that it's fun and get paid. But most people, you go to a job because you make money off of it. Business is no different. So Trump signs this executive order, which essentially shuts down these Frankenstein labs that are specifically manipulating these viruses. You know, every time, and I know I've talked about this with COVID in the past, and I know I'm not the only person to say this. Every time you don't think government bureaucrats could get any worse, a COVID story comes up and it reminds you of how absolutely terrible they are. I mean, that's it, plain and simple. They used your money, taxpayer money, to create these viruses that clearly they didn't have any way to stop. And it got leaked, according to what China says. I don't buy it, but it got released one way or the other, either by accident, by purpose. I still say by purpose. It got released. And why did that benefit China? Well, look at, we shut down our entire economy. We shut down everything. And the amount of money that we had to spend sending that money to China for the goods that we needed to survive, or we thought we needed to survive at the beginning, medicines, masks. Remember the mask shortage? And the mask didn't work, but that's neither here nor there. At the time, we didn't know. We didn't know anything, right? Fauci knew everything, by the way. We know that through the emails. We know that one of the people he was on the email chain with early on, and other scientists said, this doesn't have the signs of being a natural progression. And he quickly shut that email chain down. We have all of this evidence, all of it. And now, why do you think Trump's going so hard at China for? Do you think it's just because of the business deals? Yeah, but they also made him look like an ass. Think about all the people that were shoved to the forefront in COVID and what we know now that were making horrible decisions and advising him in terrible ways. Fauci, Birx, and the others. And look, when you are a president, and I've said this before, China, if you recall, halted all in-country flights, yes, but allowed flights from China to all other countries, yes. And remember when Trump shut those flights down and he was called a racist and a xenophobe and everything else, trying to protect us because they knew where it was coming from. We all knew where it was coming from. It's just, I mean, I'm glad he did it. This should have been a day one thing, if you ask me, really. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter per se, because I know we should cut down funding to a whole bunch of things right away. And I'm sure unofficially a lot of this funding was cut and shut down, but it's nice to have it finally end. What's going to be interesting is whoever is the next president that tries to bring it back, having a really good reason and convincing the American people of it. Because we're still feeling the effects of China. I mean, well, it is China, of COVID-19. You look at our children suffering in school still, how far behind they were, psychologically still struggling because of COVID-19. Look at the amount of mental health incidents that youths have had from the age of, I think it was while they were in school, 6 to 17. And beyond that, many scientists have pointed back to said are from COVID, from the lockdowns, from the masking, from being 6 feet apart, from all of that stuff. You look at how many people lost loved ones and couldn't say goodbye or be there with them at their deathbed. You look at all those horrible things that happened during COVID. This is a long time coming. And good luck to the next guy who tries to get in and start it back up, because you're going to have a fight in your hands, or it's going to kill you either way. The next story, I got to pull up this video. I actually have video, folks. This is one, and I say it all the time. If you don't think that California's government can race to the bottom at breakneck speed any faster than what they are,
The registry contains a.
This is Scott Wiener. He's a state senator in the state of California, and they're discussing here a law that the state's trying to pass because they passed a law against trafficking, but they did not make it a felony in that law to purchase sex from a minor. Age 16 and 17 and above, it's a misdemeanor. It's essentially the same thing as if you bought a prostitute off the street. That's how they were treating it. You were just a John if they were 16, 17 years old. And there was a bipartisan group in the California State Senate and Assembly who said, no, they're still children. Like, this is a no-brainer. And this bipartisan group brought this bill. I think it's State Bill 311 in response to the 2020 bill, State Bill 145, which loosens the requirements. And part of the other thing was, if I'm wrong, you can correct me, part of Wiener's State Bill 145 is you would not be put on the sex registry if you engaged in sex with children 16 or 17, even if you were adults. And a lot of people are saying we need to pass this law. You need to be obviously put on the sex registry if you're an adult having sex with a minor. And this isn't like the high school boyfriend 18 dating the 17-year-old girlfriend situation, right? This is not what that is. This is for the weirdo who is trying to purchase sex from a known minor. It's part of all this sex trafficking and human trafficking fight that we're having in this country that is absolutely horrendous and terrible. And everything needs to be done to these people that try to do this, including burying them under the prison, in my opinion. Scott Wiener's worried about how it's going to affect the gay community, that ending up on that sex registry because you were 21 and dated a 16-year-old child looks bad for the LGBTQ community. Does that seem weird? Well, here's his argument.
That the sex offender registry contains a massive array of crimes, including, I don't know, having sex in a car or in a park. That gets you on the sex offender registry. We also know that LGBTQ people have been massively and disproportionately targeted and subjected.
What an odd thing to say. What do you mean targeted? You mean that the police are setting up stings trying to bring gay people in to have sex with minors? Or even not even a sting, because a sting would be legal. You mean they're setting it up disproportionately and illegally to target? What? Why? You should ask yourself this question. If it's really an issue that the LGBTQ community is ending up on the sex offender list at a higher rate than other groups, why isn't the problem with that group? Why is it the law that's the problem? Look, I don't care if you're gay, straight, you identify as an elephant, whatever it is. You don't have sex with kids, ever, 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 ever. Albeit, I understand the statutory 18 to 17, they've been dating for 2 years in high school, whatever. That's always a gray area. And I've always said that that's really a parental call, and it can go to both sides. This is clearly adults, who go online and talk to a 16-year-old kid and pretend to be like 18 or whatever, and meet them at a park to have sex with them knowing that they're 16. That's essentially what this law is addressed to do. It's supposed to fix that and make it a felony, to make it a real... This being a misdemeanor, if you don't think I said this, it's subhuman to me to think that it is acceptable to be a grown-ass adult, male, female, whatever. And you see a lot of females doing this with teachers now. It's crazy how many female teachers are being arrested and booked and charged for having sex with children at their school, or that they go to teach in school, whatever. But if you're any of those people, I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're straight. I don't care. You should be buried under the prison. It's a felony. 16, 17-year-old kids, let's think about this. They can't drink. They can't buy cigarettes. They can't enlist in the military. They can't vote. They can't drive unless at 16, unless they have a special class. And even then, they can't have other kids in the cars, right? We have all these limitations on our youth. Why? because they have not matured enough emotionally and mentally to be able to make all of these decisions. We've said that as a society. They can't buy guns. 18 plus you can. Right? And yeah, if you look up Anthony Weiner, he's a weirdo. He's like one of those guys who goes to parades dressed in leather with the collar and all that other stuff. Not that that specifically makes him a weirdo, but just if you look at his whole personality and you look at some of his tweets and what he supports and what he doesn't support, I think he's a weirdo. And if he was a straight guy, I'd say he was a weirdo. Anybody who is trying to say that certain sex crimes against children are okay because they're belong to this community or that community or whatever, it's not. You're an asshole. You're a fucking monster, in my opinion. And you've never dealt with kids, even at that age, that have been actually victimized. I have. You haven't. If you think it's okay, you haven't. Oh, yeah. No, I lost wonder. I think 95% of the world is with you on that. Anyone touch my kid, they'll never find him or heard from again. Yeah, I think most people believe in that. BZ, who dealt with child abuse and sex crimes as a peace officer, males are historically overcharged sexually no matter the inclination. Gay, straights, dresses, and all point in between. Leave kids alone. Let kids have their fucking childhood, for fuck's sake. Yeah, and that's my point. I don't understand how this is even an issue, and this tells you how fucking far off these maggots, to use BZ's term because he piped in with an intelligent comment, in Sacramento are. You can't fathom it. The human mind can't fathom it. A normal, everyday working person who doesn't work in government and isn't trying to have all of these special interests, you cannot imagine what goes through their head because it would drive you insane. He authored a bill making it legal to have sex with minors as long as you're less than 10 years older than. Yeah, no, he's a nutcase. I don't care what anyone says. He's a lunatic. And like I said, this whole defense of, well, it disproportional, I don't care at that point. They're fucking children, literally and figuratively. And it needs to stop. Our children are supposed to be the most protected class in society. 18 under, I don't care who you are, where you come from, you should be protected. You should be safe. You should be allowed to be a child. You should be allowed to grow. You should be allowed to mature naturally. This changes kid forever. And I know we live in a society where people are intentionally maturing our children, and society has matured our children beyond their abilities. Phones, the internet, all this stuff. I say it all the time. It takes away children's innocence. It does. Plain and simple. It removes the innocence because of the stuff that they are seeing and exposed to and being told is okay to do by influencers online, by certain politicians. And the fact that they're trying to shut down this bill that would just make it illegal for 16, 17-year-olds to have sex with adults or to purchase it and make it a felony, it is beyond comprehension. And it's, I called them subhuman earlier, and I will continue to use that term. It is not human. It is subhuman. They are piles of evil flesh. If you're agreeing to this, I don't care. And I will say too, I applaud people who are gay and lesbian that come out against this. And you have a lot of groups that have popped up from those communities saying, hey, this is not okay. Kids are kids. Like this should never, ever, ever involve children. They should always be protected. And I agree wholeheartedly. And I applaud them because what you don't know is and I have friends who've told me this that are gay and lesbian. If you're in the gay and lesbian community and you will go against the LGBTQ acceptance, you step outside of what they agree with, you go against what they agree with. If you're a conservative or anything like that, they ostracize you and attack you worse than anyone else does. So I can see that being part of a small community and then being ostracized by them because your ideals don't line up. It we've seen that from tons of different groups over time. There's always those people that start standing up saying, "Hey, this is not okay. And I don't care what this does to my reputation. This isn't okay, and I'll die on that hill." And I'll tell you right now, I'm standing with all those people because this is grotesque, in my opinion. Comments from the chat room. Adult pedos view children as sex toys. They know their minds can easily prevail. They know their minds, meaning the pedophiles, can easily prevail over the minds of a child, and know that children are accepting, vulnerable, and trusting, and it's just despicable. Yeah, it is. And BZ, you know this too. One of the things that, especially with teenagers, is being accepted and being an adult. If you've ever met a teenager, I was this teenager, most of us were. When you get to that 16, 17, you think you know everything. You think you know how to handle the world. You think you're ready to go out there and face the world and make all these important decisions. I'm big enough to do this. I'm grown up. Why do you think there's so many fights with adults, parents, and teenagers? Because your children have a tendency to get very headstrong because they're on the edge of adulthood. They're mature more than they were. And they're in a situation, a lot of them in high school, where they see how these freshmen and sophomores act and they're juniors and seniors. And they look at them as juvenile and go, well, I don't do that stuff anymore, so I must be an adult. And if they have any negative image of themselves, and I know if you know predators and sex offenders in this case, but any predator that preys on people with image problems, self awareness problems, whatever, they hone in on that and they exploit the hell out of that. And that is something that has been done for years. Years. The worst moment of my life, IT life, was finding child prawn on my friend's computer because he had a virus and wanted me to take care. Maryland State Police were called immediately. Yeah. Yeah. I look, I can't think of anyone I'm fortunate that has gotten in trouble for that, because I'd want to smack him around as much as humanly possible. But that's what these monsters do. As soon as they find that weakness, they needle in, or they find that need to be accepted and they start, trying to, oh, you're okay here. It's safe here. This is a safe place. And then they exploit it. And we know that it's been documented. That's how predators, that's how they go after the weak and unprotected, right? It's just like the herd of whatever animal, antelope. The lion waits for the one that trails behind, and that's the one that they go and get. The reason, if you've ever watched any of these SVU shows, the reason why they're a show is because monsters have been doing this for a long time. I talked about it when I ripped into the church a couple weeks ago about Catholic priests using their position of power to manipulate young men, boys, not even young men, boys. And we all know that these are the traits. We all know that these are the patterns. We all know that these are how these crimes end up happening. Yes, you have sometimes the forceful ones. We're not talking about that, obviously. We all know that. But these crimes that are manipulation crimes, that are exploitation crimes, that are just trying to make you watch your kids. If you ever watch your kids, I get an 11, 14-year-old. I watch them go through phases all the time where they kind of change things in their personality so their friends accept them. And I have the conversation about not doing that, but having the conversation is a lot different. It isn't easy to get kids to listen to adults and why you shouldn't do that and why it's not important. And if your friends don't accept you for who you are, then they're not your friends. It's tough with these kids now. They don't want to listen. And it's hard to combat that mindset with them, especially from parents. So to turn around and to say, oh, we're worried about this, how this is going to affect the LGBTQ community, who gives a shit? At the end of the day, that's the final answer. Who cares? If they're hooking up with kids, who gives a shit what community they're from? I tell you right now, there are plenty of other groups that were on the sex offender registry that had a higher percentage of background or a higher percentage of the list, nobody worried about them. Nobody. It wasn't like, well, what are we going to do about this community? The straight white fat guy community who's lived by himself his whole life and lived near a park. What are we going to do about them? Nobody gave a shit, and rightfully so. I don't give a shit either. Under the prison, bury him under the prison. Let's call it a day, go grab a couple beers, and we're done. Plain and simple. Take a break. Hey, do me a favor. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Like the episode specifically. If you want to jump into the chat room, go to YouTube, search SHR Media. It has this logo right here, the one that's right over my head. Click on it. You'll see the live stream. You click on that, and you can get in the chat room and yak with everybody else. Gonna take a break. Be back in.
Freedom. One nation in all of human history was built on that bedrock. Ours. A republic of the people, by the people, and for the people. Self-government requires freedom, just as freedom requires an individual willingness to self-govern. Freedom has made America exceptional, but it can only last as long as you and I seek the good, as expressed by the laws of nature and nature's God. It can only last if you and I choose to act as people of character. Forging character has been the pursuit of Hillsdale College since 1844.
Ever dream of escaping the daily grind? At Escapist Travel and Tours, we make those dreams your reality. From breathtaking adventures to cultural immersions, we offer escapes tailored just for you. Let us take you to places where every moment feels like a new chapter in your life's adventure. Visit www.escapist.travel or call us today at 1-855-885-81776. Your escape awaits.
Are you looking for a way to boldly express your faith and love for your country? And check out Seven Armors, the premier apparel company for patriotic men of God, where faith meets freedom in style. Our t-shirts are more than just clothing, they're statements. Bold, stylish, and meaningful. From timeless messages to modern designs, we've got something for every patriotic man of God. Wear your beliefs proudly with Seven Armors gear. Don't miss the chance to wear your faith and freedom on your sleeve. Visit 7armors.com today and join the movement. That's the number 7armors.com.
And we are back here on the SHR Media Network. You're watching The Edge of Liberty. I do want to just follow up really quick. Ashley, I think I pronounce her name wrong. If it is, I apologize. Zavala. She works for KCRA in Sacramento. She has been all over the California legislature. I mean, she's assigned to the legislature, but she's been exposing a lot of things over time. She's been pretty down the middle, too. I give her a lot of credit. But one of the things after all this came out, and it was, I got the state bill wrong earlier. It was 379 is the one they're trying to pass. But one of the things that she highlighted today, and by the way, the state Democrats of California have not answered to anything. But she posted earlier about yesterday, it looks like California Democrat Party now has ads on Facebook claiming it was the Republicans that voted against stronger laws to protect kids, which was not true at all. And when she asked them about it, they had no idea what she was talking about. But even Democrats that she talked to had no idea that the Democrats in California were taking out Facebook ads attacking Republicans. So, I mean, politically, this is just like the worst. I don't know how else you can do this more horribly than what the California Democrats are doing. Try to blame the other side when obviously the other side was not the one doing this. While we're on the topic of horrendous and horrific crimes, I'm going to introduce you to another shithead right here. His name is Zaid Mashur Haddad. He's a professor at the University of San Antonio. And he was arrested today. I believe it was today, maybe yesterday, for possession of child pornography. And not only was he arrested for it, but guess what he was watching when the FBI raided his house? Unfreaking believable. That's right. College professor was watching child pornography as he was arrested for possessing child pornography. So follow that scumbag story. I'm sure that he's going to play out even in Texas because it's federal charges. Well, maybe not now. Maybe not now. It's just disgusting and horrific. And I don't know why stuff like that isn't a life sentence. Like these people, I don't believe they're ever reformed. I don't believe that they ever. Cheetah's in the chat room. Thank you, Cheetah. I am sharing your story as I talk. I don't believe they ever change. I really don't. I could go on and on about this for hours, but I don't want to make this the whole show because it's just absolutely freaking infuriating. Staying in the state of California. Oh, by the way, did I mention that professor was a gigantic social justice warrior? Yeah, huge. It's weird. So weird. But while we're on the topics of California, I lost my bookmark. Where is it? There it is. Governor Newsom was on some British television show. I don't know which one it was. I'm sure the little marker's down here at the bottom. But he did. You remember, it was 2-3 months ago, I said, Gavin Newsom's going to now try to go to the middle of the aisle. And while he's there, he's going to rewrite history. And part of doing that, he's doing something that I think is brilliant brilliant politically because he sees the writing on the wall. But it shows you what a scummy human being he is. He's now saying, well, we should really look at how we lost the last election and what it was. And I'm pulling up the clip here, so just give me a hot second. But I just laugh because that's his dipping his toe in the water of, well, we have to change some things as a party. And make no mistake, I do not think, I know Kamala just had her speech the other night where she was like a drunken lunatic. Where is the Newsom clip? I had it here somewhere. Oh, did I lose it? I might have lost it. Oh, no, here it is. I'm better than I thought I was. Doesn't happen often. Just watch this and you tell me if this is a guy who A, is prepared for 2028 and B, is getting ready to rewrite the history of the Democratic Party for the last 12, 14, 16 years.
Administration. But, I mean, you're leaving something very important off the list, Governor. You also ran a candidate who could not reliably
Well, let me get the sound up. There we go.
Talk, walk, or ride a bicycle. Take me into Gavin Newsom's soul when you had to tell reporters from around the world why the United States president could not complete a sentence.
Well, it was obviously we were challenged as it relates to that debate. But if you're asking about my soul, which I appreciate, you're asking about my direct engagement and interactions with former President Joe Biden, who was not our nominee, but as it relates to his campaign and what those decisions look like, as it relates to his determination whether or not to continue that campaign or end it as he did.
This gets me so mad, and I'm going to just yak for a second here. He was your nominee until the world saw what the rest of us were saying, that he was not mentally well and mentally fit enough to continue as president. When it became so obvious when he was a drooling, babbling idiot in the debate and you guys could not argue it anymore, essentially when your own media was attacking you and saying, what is wrong with this guy? That's the only time that you said, maybe we should start having another conversation, right? That's the only time you guys said it. Remember, Tim Walz, everyone forgets this. After the bad debate against Trump, where Putin brain was just might as well have been walking in circles, there was a whole cadre of governors that went to meet with him. I think it was Gretchen Whitmore, Pritzker, and Tim Walz. I could be wrong about all of them. But Tim Walz was the one who came out and came to the podium and said, he's sharp as a tack. There's nothing wrong with that guy. He's fine. What are you guys even talking about? Right? He's running circles around everybody back there. That guy's a genius. And then behind what we know now is behind the curtain, Pelosi and others are saying, yeah, he's done. He's out. So stop acting like you knew he was well. You knew he wasn't well. You spent enough time with the man. Just stop. I'll tell you right now, Democrats, if they don't turn around and just say, yeah, you know what? We wrote a lot of things off as just like Joe gaffes. That's their only defense, because Joe made enough gaffes over the years where you could make that argument politically. Like, I just thought it was Joe being Joe. You know how he was goofy sometimes? And I didn't spend enough time with him to really suss it out. Another one who Jen Psaki did an interview last week. Oh, he was, every time I was there, he was sharp. He was super sharp. Yeah, he wasn't sharp. You knew he wasn't sharp. You all knew it. It's still the question in my mind that I will ask continuously: who was running the country? We know Joe wasn't. We know it was a cabal of people. And why aren't more people pissed off about that in this country? The man you elected as president wasn't running the country. It was a shadow government, a real shadow government. Kevin, I try to be slicker than KY. Yeah, well, I mean, look at how that turned out with his buddy in the campaign. That turned out well when he was mayor. But let's continue with old Gavin.
I never had, period, full stop. I would be lying to you, and I won't lie to you.
This
as it relates to the direct engagement I had with Joe Biden.
Oh, no, I'll lie about that.
A cognitive decline to the degree that we saw, at that debate night. And so that was a challenging moment. And of course, over the course of the next few weeks, that moment became a monumental decision where he decided to pass that baton, and Kamala Harris as vice president became our nominee.
So that's the first part of that speech. And it was Newsnight. I thought it was overseas. I guess I was wrong. But he also went on to say that they lost due to a lack of self-reflection, internal accountability. We have not done a forensic on what went wrong, period, full stop. He also criticized Democrats of, well, maybe we were just too toxic and judgmental, and we weren't listening to the other side. And really, we had a tendency to just, be real big meanies, and we have to stop doing that. Literally everything that the Democrats said they wanted to do, be obstructionist, be hard, take hold of government, make sure that we never go back to the Trump days, shit all over people that supported Trump, shit all over half this country, and just manipulate media. All those things he talked about later in the clip is something we should really take a look at. He's getting ready to try to rewrite the past, and that's where it starts. And it's just, I think the autopen regime, BZ says, the autopen regime reminds me of a corrupted form of a Manchurian candidate. It was a shadow government. Because even when Joe was well, Joe wasn't the ultra super progressive leftist that he turned out to be in orders that he signed or autopen signed. He was being pushed around because he was weak-minded. Yeah, Kamala became our nominee. Yeah. Yep. And I'll tell you right now, Gavin's going to be the next one. I think that they're going to push for her to run for governor of California. If she wins, then she's tied up for the next election. If she doesn't win, she's just going to fade away and go away. And Gavin's going to be the nominee. And he is going to absolutely, all of a sudden, become a centrist. And it started when he did the Charlie Kirk interview. And he also turned around and said that boys should not play in girls' sports. That's where it started. That's where he officially came out as a candidate, in my opinion. I said he was going to start doing that a long time ago. He's going to go to the middle. He knows he has to go to the middle. Being hard left in this country is not going to win. Being to the middle has a tendency to do much better. Getting those independents, you do much better in the middle. And he knows that. He's kind of like Lindsey Graham on the left. He is the consummate politician. Everything he does is for political gain. Everything he does benefits him as a politician. He has no soul. He absolutely has no soul. It's that hunger for power. And he absolutely will do anything, will say anything to be that nominee and win the election. And look, you look at the skeletons that this guy has been able to shove back in the closet. He slept with his best friend's wife, who is his campaign manager's wife. Slept with her, cheated on with her. And he still got elected governor. You look at all the things that he supported in this state that have just ruined this state. And he still has relatively high support amongst Democrats in the state. It's falling right now, actually, which is kind of funny. But it doesn't matter in California specifically. He knows how California votes. He knows California will vote for him, even if they think he's a scumbag, over anybody with an R next to their name. And I know there's a lot of people in California thinking we can turn the state purple. I don't think California will ever go purple. I think every once in a while, yeah, you might get a Steve Hilton elected. Every once in a while, you might get a Republican into power for a short period of time, but there's just too many liberals in the state and the big cities. It's never going to happen. Gavin is a lost wanderer. Gavin is a certified idiot, yet excels as a buzzard, chewing on those bits he can. I agree to a point. I don't think he's an idiot. I actually know people who worked with him one-on-one. He's highly intelligent, which is why I said he's not a good person. He knows exactly what he's doing and how he's doing it. He is a buzzard circling right now. That's 100% of what he's doing. But don't let him off the hook by saying he's an idiot, because he's not. He's just a very savvy scumbag politician. He is more greasy than the grease in his hair, 100%. And apparently people that have worked on one-on-one said he's like that 24/7, 365. You actually get the real Gavin Newsom, believe it or not. BZ in the chat room. Absolutely, Newsom has no soul. He is a consummate chameleon. He will tell you what he thinks you want to know and hear when he thinks you want to hear it and from the angle you want to hear it. California's not coming back. And the UK is not going back. Yeah, I agree with BZ. I don't think California's ever coming back. Maybe I'm lost. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm missing something. I like seeing more conservatives speak in California. I like seeing them try, but the simple fact of the matter is just the numbers ain't there, dude. The numbers ain't there. And I'll tell you right now, Trump being in office will make getting California purple that much harder, because you got to understand, most of the people that already voted for Gavin or Kamala, and they'll vote for anyone with a D, they're already rich. They're already Bay Area liberals. They're already LA liberals. They already had money. All of that. 100%. They don't care about a better economy. They don't care about any of that stuff because it doesn't affect them. They're rich enough. It doesn't matter. Lost Wonder said, my second wife had a doppelganger. She could be who you wanted when you wanted, then stab you in the back. Gavin reminds me of that. So yeah, I think Gavin is going to 100% be the nominee this time around. More good news, and I only got about 12 minutes left. I have a whole bunch of little stories I'll clean up at the end. The NIH ends a barbaric act, which this is another thing that's been a long time coming. Long time coming. What you may not have known is that the NIH, who was run by Fauci, remember him? The NIH ran these test facilities where they would lock up these dogs around the neck and they would release insects to attack and kill them to study it. Hundreds of dogs, thousands of dogs were seriously killed for these experiments. The beagle experiments were the ones that everyone saw the most, but there are other ones too. And Trump today signed an executive order shutting it down, not allowing it anymore. I believe it's an executive order. My notes say it's an executive order, so it must be an executive order. Look, I understand that there has to be science for discovery. I understand that we need science to better our medical field and better a lot of other things. I don't understand why in this day and age we still have to torture animals to get there. And I'm not like this huge, I'm not like a PETA guy or anything like that. I just think animals should be treated like animals. Pets should be treated like pets. Cows should be eaten, et cetera, et cetera. And I think there's a big difference. And the fact that they were torturing these animals, inherently complacent and kind. Yeah. Yeah. I just, again, when you get exposed to what this government, what our government has done over the years, and when the truth starts coming out, it makes you realize that the people running this government, the bureaucrats and all the unelected people that are really running most of our government, answer to nobody, were horrible people. Horrible people. Absolutely horrible people. So I'm glad that's over. It's I'm a dog lover. So that really infuriated me when I first heard that story. The Papal Conclave officially underway. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. That has started. There's been no smoke as of this show. Maybe there's some smoke now. If somebody wants to look, tell me, that'd be cool. This is an interesting one. This one hit, and at first I really, really thought that this was absolutely I thought this was a troll, and it could still be. I'll tell you right now, Trump has gotten me with a few trolls, not a lot, but every once in a while he releases something where I'm like, okay, where's this one going? And it's fun. I'll be honest with you. It's fun trying to figure it out, because I'm not saying that any of it's necessarily a bad idea or a good idea. It's just he sometimes gets me. He put out a tweet saying he wanted to Trump for Pope. Yeah, that was amazing. People losing their mind because he put out the Pope picture. I laughed hysterically. I know plenty of Catholics who laughed hysterically. And even if you didn't, get a friggin' sense of humor. But this next one is Trump put out today that he wants to reopen Alcatraz. Alcatraz, first of all, it would take a lot of money to get Alcatraz up and running today. And I do have the tweet. Here it is. Rebuild and open Alcatraz. For too long, America has been plagued by vicious, violent, and repeat criminal offenders, the dregs of society, who will never contribute anything other than misery and suffering. That is entirely true. When we were a more serious nation in the past, we did not hesitate to lock up the most dangerous criminals and keep them far away from anyone they could harm. That's the way it's supposed to be. No longer will we tolerate these serial offenders who spread filth, bloodshed, and mayhem on our streets. I agree. That is why today I am directing the Bureau of Prisons, together with the DOJ, FBI, and Homeland Security, to reopen a substantially enlarged and rebuilt Alcatraz to house America's most ruthless and violent offenders. We will no longer be held hostage to criminals, thugs, and judges that are afraid to do their job and allow us to remove criminals who came to our country illegally. The reopening of Alcatraz will serve as a symbol of law, order, and justice. We will make America great again. I get to ask chat room right now, is he trolling, or is he really going to reopen Alcatraz? Because I don't know. If you know anything about the ultimate trolling, you have to be completely eye level Alcatraz. Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought BZ nailed it. I thought rebuilding and reopening Alcatraz, you would have to, and he said, though, I mean, this is the part that got me, though, is that he said, where was it specifically? I'm directing the Bureau of Prisons together with DOJ to reopen and substantially enlarged and rebuilt Alcatraz. So, is he going to flatten it and build it from the way up, from the ground up, I should say? And is this a giant FU to the Bay Area? Because they're going to be clutching pearls in the Bay Area. Prisoners back? We don't even like the prisoners at San Quentin, which is right up the road. We're trying to get rid of that so it's further away from our homes and destroying our property values. Is this a giant FU to them? It could be. It could be. I don't know. I don't know on this one, and I'm laughing either way. And part of the things that we've talked about before is Trump is such a master troller. He absolutely gets them to bite on stuff so bad that the left goes batshit crazy, and then it never happens. And he's giggling in back rooms all the time when he sends stuff like this out. I don't Don't make me stop this car moment. Yeah, but I don't know. And Rick, you might be right. I don't know the legality because it's still owned. The Department of Parks runs it, and the executive has power over the Department of Parks. So I don't know what the process would be to hand that back over to the Bureau of Prisons and start again. Oops, sorry, BZ. You can imagine the med runs you'd have to make, the court runs you'd have to make, entire impractical in standpoint whatsoever. It would take millions of dollars to even remotely try to rehab it. Yeah, why rehab it when you could just flatten it if that's what he's going to do? And yeah, I mean, but the court things, yeah, that would be tough. But I have a feeling if it was used like it was before, as guys who weren't going to see courts for a long time or shouldn't be seeing court for a long time, and they'll probably have a medical facility there. It could also be a way around the judges who block the deportations. It could be. I like what we're getting this. Cheetah says, I think he's rattling some cages. He likely directed it, but it is foul to just see how the left will respond. Yeah, I agree. I think he will do it if he could. And it's not a state park. The state of California doesn't run it. It is still federal parks. So the federal Department of Parks runs it. Is it Federal Department of Parks or whatever it's called now? So I don't know. I don't know if this is a stroke of the pen and then you get Congress to fund it type thing, or if they have to actually pass a law handing it back, or some sort of legislation, I should say, handing it back to the Bureau of Prisons to start. It would take years, and it's most likely would get shut down by the time they got the money, by the time they got through all the red tape. I think that he would be out of office, and whoever comes in next would probably close it down. The last one, and this is just creepy. My last story tonight. I'm just going to play this.
I think as the personalization loop kicks in and the AI just starts to get to know you better and better, I think that will just be really compelling. One thing just from working on social media for a long time is there's the stat that I always think is crazy. The average American, I think it's fewer than 3 friends. 3 people that they'd consider friends. And the average person has demand for meaningfully more. I think it's like 15 friends or something, right? I guess there's probably some point where you're like, all right, I'm just too busy. I can't deal with more people. But the average person wants more connectivity, connection than they have. So there's a lot of questions that people ask of stuff like, okay, is this going to replace kind of in-person connections or real life connections? And my default is that the answer to that is probably no. I think
he does actually say you're better off having physical connections. But for a split second, I thought he was going to start recommending that people had more electronic friends than real friends, because he probably had more electronic friends than real friends. I'm sure he had a doll with a computer in it and something else like that. So, oh, man, it scares me. Like I said, we did a whole show on AI. I think AI is cool to a point. I think it's good to use to a point. I think it's very helpful to a point. You start mixing this with some of these real life dolls that you see, and the fact that a lot of people are already so engaged in their phone and our interpersonal skills have fallen away. You see it all the time on social media, people ripping up stores and stuff like that, not looting it, but the ones who get mad because they can't get their chicken nuggets or whatever, and they go absolutely crazy. It's lack of interpersonal skills is what that is. It's lack of understanding how other human beings operate and being understanding of a situation. And that all that comes because you don't have proper interpersonal skills. And I worry about my kids. I mean, in school they use computers, at home they use computers. It's all there all the time. And I never want it to get to the point in society where it replaces interpersonal. Now, that comes from a person that I generally hate people. And I know that's going to sound horrible and everyone's going to go, ew. I just mean in crowds, in groups. I think, how people in society act. I hate people. Individually, I like people. masses I have a tendency to be completely annoyed with, which is why I do this show. But it's one of those things that interpersonal skills cannot ever just go away. And it scares me that we're even having the discussion about that. And then, like I said, you've seen some of these real life dolls that people are buying and turning that into their odd significant other. It makes me realize I'm not so far mentally off the reservation yet, that I still can look at that and see that it's absolutely bonkers and batshit crazy. Folks, that's going to be it for yeah, that's how I am. I like a person. I hate people. I hate people. My hat says so. You do have a hat that says I hate people. Folks, that's going to be it for me here on the Edge of Liberty. Thank you so much. I'll be back Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast, right here on the SHR Media Network. Make sure you check out our good friends over at KLRN. They simulcast us. They're awesome. We love them over there. Make sure you check out all their shows. There was a great show that the Lost Wonder did the other night that you need to find and watch and listen to again. Right here on SHR every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon on the East Coast. You have Mission Ready Men with my good friend Big E, who's been in the chat room all night. And of course, Tuesday and Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast. You have the Bloviating Zeppelins, Berserk, Bobcat Saloon, the one and only BZ, the only guy I know that remembers when Alcatraz was around the first time. I think he worked it. Weren't you a guard on Alcatraz, BZ, when it first opened? I'm not 100% sure at that. And of course, Monday and Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 the East Coast. You're the Reaver of Common Sense. By the way, there may be another show coming. We're in talks with a good friend of ours, somebody, a blast from the past, who reached out, and we're hoping to be able to make that happen. So check out shrmedia.com for our lineup. We're also starting to post some articles up there, some fun stuff up there for you to enjoy. And you can also watch the show from shrmedia.com. So please go to shrmedia.com. Please like the content. Please share it. And I will be back, like I said, Wednesday evening. I hope you have a great couple of days. I'll talk to you soon. See ya.